Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. And today I have a guest on that I'm excited to talk to because she's got some really interesting ideas. One of the concepts that you've heard me talk about before in a video when I read Evan Carmichael's book called The One Word, which we'll put a link here, which was a really good book, which I still haven't quite figured out my one word. Maybe Lily will be able to help me. But anyway, I have here Lily Ma, and she is she works with Evan Carmichael. She's an entrepreneur. She's given a TED talk. She's done a lot of really cool things and done a lot of work with the One Word book. And so thanks for coming on, Lily.
Well, thank you so much for having me, John.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself? Like, who is Lily?
Who is Lily?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, and I'm an entrepreneur. A little bit of background information about me. I worked in the corporate industry for about 12 years before I decided to start my own business. And every single morning I wake up with the one mission in mind. That mission is to inspire both myself and others to live an extraordinary life. And to be honest with you, it's a life that I never thought that I would live. So when I used to sit in my own cubicle, I was like, there must be more to life than this. And then finally, I took a leap of faith this year and I decided to start my own business. And that's how I started working with Evan. And then we met Evan through you, and I'm here doing this interview.
Wow. Okay. So this was pretty recent then. You said this year you decided to throw off the corporate shackles, huh?
Yes, that's right. I did. It was May of this year. So really recent.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what kind of work were you doing in the corporate world?
I did a bunch of different things. I was in the fashion industry, so I worked in purchasing.
Okay.
So I did a lot of procurement. I was attracted to that because I was really interested in people's behavior and the consumer behavior. That's what I went into it, and I realized that it wasn't for me. I lost passion for it. I didn't have the personality to kind of go through with it. And eventually I moved on to e-commerce and digital marketing is what I did most recently before I called it quits.
Okay. There's something about the whole e-commerce and digital marketing. Well, marketing world seems to open up people's eyes to a different way of looking at the world. It seems. I remember when I first started getting into marketing and started reading marketing books. That's when I started to realize. That's when that light turned on for me, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't need someone else. I could do my own thing, and there's another world out here. It's not just everybody sits in cubicles all day.
Yes. And what's interesting is the last 2 years of my corporate world, I spent a lot of time learning about marketing and the e-com world. And because I knew eventually I would have my own business. So I spent that time in really learning. And while I was doing that, I was getting paid for it. So it was fantastic for me.
Yeah, that does kind of change the thought. I encourage a lot of my listeners and viewers that, like, if they're working their regular job and they don't like it or whatever, to think about it as training, as like they're learning something, like they're as an apprenticeship, as opposed to just something they have to do every day. Because when you have that attitude, then you realize, and I mean, really, it's a good attitude, I think, to approach life. Is just like every time that you've got some kind of difficulty or struggle, it's an apprenticeship. You're learning something. Like, this is the opportunity to grow in some way. So that's cool. Yeah. So tell me what you're doing now. What are you doing now with Evan and with your business and speaking?
Okay, so when Evan and I got together in this venture, it was our mission to grow $1 million business, and then we wanted to do it around my speaking, which end up in we do a lot of coaching one-on-one. So I work with a lot of people doing their one word coaching.
Oh, cool.
Trying to help them find their one word and finding clarity there. Because what I believe is that in order for you to go out there and do the things that you really want to do, you need to figure out who you are. Right. And the process of finding your one word, you're able to look inward and find out that one thing that you stand for. And then once they figure out what that is, they could decide what they want to do next. And then that's where the responsibility comes in. So you know what you stand for. Now you need to take the responsibility to go on that path.
Okay.
So a lot of it is my coaching. I do speaking as well. Like you mentioned, I have done a TEDx talk recently about the subject, your one word. And I also do videos on Evan's channel as well.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I could use your help in figuring out my one word. I've
Yes.
got ideas.
Okay. All
So I'm
right.
going to put you
Let's
on the
hear it.
spot here. Okay. So you want to hear what my ideas about it, or how about
Of
you
course.
lead? You ask me some questions. Okay.
Okay, sure. So finding your one word, the first thing that you want to think about is make a list of everything that makes you happy and
Okay.
brings you the utmost joy. And the reason why we want to do that is that there's a common theme that unites all of those things in your eyes, even though it may seem completely unrelated. Like, for example, you read a lot of books,
Right.
right? What is your favorite book?
That's a tough one. It changes from time to time. I think I'm gonna have to say that my favorite book, like what's sticking out in my mind right now,
Mhm.
is the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Okay. So out of all the books you have read, you're a really well-read man. I've seen some of your videos. You probably read over 100 books. Out of all the books, why does that stand out to you? What are the
Uh,
three words that describe it?
it's overcoming. It's overcoming adversity, challenges. It's growing. It's uh, and it's I'm trying to think what else. So I mean, overcoming is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Okay.
Like I said,
Mhm.
it's a book about about the truth about the metaphor of what we all struggle with. It's about, yeah, it's overcoming struggle and going finding your higher calling, your higher purpose, and enabling you to do that, to go out and pursue that.
Okay. So if you were to distill that into three words, what would that be? So you have overcome, you have growing, and then is there another word that you could distill it?
I would almost say spiritual. I think the book is a spiritual book. Like the at least it has a, or maybe uplifting. No, it's not really uplifting, because it's more like, you need to go and do the work, and so I would say spiritual. Yeah.
Spiritual. Okay. So the next thing, do you remember the last time you were overwhelmingly happy? Just recall it
Okay. I'm gonna
and relive it.
think.
Like really think
Okay. Yeah.
about that moment.
Okay.
All right. So what happened in that moment, and like what are the three words that describe it to you?
It's funny. Like, it's gonna seem set up, but but it was overcoming my fears, right? Overcoming a
Oh,
fear.
okay.
So overcome. It's I'm seeing the
Okay.
theme. Adrenaline, like excitement, uh,
Okay.
accomplishment.
Accomplishment. Okay. Good. So overcome, accomplishment, and adrenaline, you said, or excitement.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay. So you see there is a theme that is repeating,
Yes.
which is overcome. So that's we could keep it there. And now sometimes with people, I have found it's easier to go negative. It's easier to go the other way. So you want to think about the traits that you hate.
Okay.
Are there specific people that has come across in your life that you can't stand being around? Not because they're bad people, it's just that they stand for something that you don't stand for. And every time they're around, you just don't want to be them. So you want to think about maybe a coworker that you've had years in the past, like every time they're around, you don't want to be them. What does that person represent to you?
I would say giving up. Um, like, gosh, it's hard to describe. Like looking for things that are wrong.
Mm,
Um, Wanting to bring other people down.
okay. Giving up, bringing people down, and wanting to give up.
Yeah.
Now, so you're thinking of one specific person, I'm assuming, or in general?
In general, yeah, in general, because I can think of a
In
few
general.
people that, yeah.
Okay. And then
Oh, you know what? I got a
now,
good one.
mhm,
Telling people they're not qualified, like trying to invalidate other people. right, based on that they're not qualified. That doesn't, because I have to say this one because everyone on my YouTube channel knows that the one time that John goes on a rant and starts cursing is when someone tells him that he's not qualified to talk on the subject because he's white, or because he's whatever it is, he doesn't have a PhD in sociology, whatever it is. I don't like anyone saying that someone else, that I feel like we should, what we say matters, not what our credentials for saying it are.
Okay.
Our arguments.
So when you think about that's good. So when you think about these people who are saying like, John, you're not qualified, you should not be talking about this. I'm sure you've come across people like that. What is that one thing that you just like, you know what, I'm going to go off on a rant here. This person represents this one thing that I cannot stand. What is that for you in one word?
Gosh, I want to say, well, I would say it's disbelief.
Disbelief.
Yeah.
Okay. So disbelief would be your anti-word. This is what John doesn't stand for. What is the opposite of that for you?
The opposite of disbelief? Like eternal optimism. I don't know if there's a word, grit. Grit. Never giving up, grit. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're seeing a bit of a pattern. So either if you go through the happiness exercise and you found that overcome is coming up a lot for you, that could be your one word. And then, or you look at the traits that you hate, is that having the grit is what is your antidote to all those people that tell you that you can't do what you want to do. So between all of them, you could narrow it down to see what your one word is. And if you're still sitting on 2 words, I don't know what those are. You could tell me that now. What are the couple of words that you were thinking of before I came along?
Growth, I think, was one of them before we had this discussion. And and like, what else was I thinking about? Growth, like I was trying to come up with, it was hard to come up with a single word to describe, but like accelerating, like Bulldog was one of them.
Bulldog.
Yeah.
I like it. So do you think that it has to be powerful enough for you to feel like this is what you stand for? So if you have grow, you have different types of words, is there something that overarches all those words?
I think Bulldog does, actually. For some, at least in my mind, it does, right? I don't know if different people have a different interpretation, but when I think Bulldog, I think of plowing forward, no matter what the obstacle, never letting go, and just going. So
yeah, and that could be it. And that's exactly what you said. It's people have different interpretation of what that word means, but it doesn't matter what others think. It's about what you think, because it's your one word, right? People might think Bulldog, they think of the actual animal, but for you, it represents something much bigger.
Right. Yeah, to me, it's a verb. Like, yeah, okay.
So sit on that one, think about it, sleep on it, and see how you feel tomorrow. And the whole thing about your one word is it should feel better with time, not worse. So if you feel better about it tomorrow, it's probably closer to what your one word is.
Okay. This is good. Thank you. This was actually really, really good. I felt like I can see the theme more. When I was trying to just think about it on my own, I was kind of thinking about what would be a cool one word, as opposed to what is really, and that overcoming theme, clicked a few times. So that's interesting too, because I like the way you're doing it, because I feel like too, if I pick a word, I'm associating all the things that we talked about. I'm imbuing that meaning into that word, as opposed to like saying, trying to get meaning from a word. You know what I mean? So like now that word has more meaning to me, because when I think of Bulldog now, I'm thinking about, like, I visualize the thing that makes me happy, the book, the struggles, like all that. So I'm attaching all of that meaning to it now. So, okay, this is very good.
Exactly. And the reason why we do the happiness exercise is identifying that common theme. You could bring more of that into your life, because I'm a strong believer in creating my own happiness and not waiting for something to happen. So if you are about Bulldog, you need to bring more of that into your life.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so wow, that was cool. I want to talk to you also about something else that you had mentioned about a concept that you're talking about. I like this, that you, even just the way that you phrase this. You said in the email to me that you're working on a new concept called taking responsibility, which is a jump off from your one word. And I like this because I phrase things this way. Like I'll have a concept in my head and I'll start working that like in my life. And so I feel like this is a similar thing. Tell me about this taking responsibility concept.
Okay, so what I have seen with people and with myself, that once people take responsibility for their life and take responsibility for everything that happens in life, it is extremely empowering. So it's
Right.
not like you're blaming yourself over everything that's happening. Like, I can't believe that I'm late all the time. I can't believe I'm a terrible loser. I'm always late. You know, I'm always going to be poor. So instead of having that attitude and say, I am responsible, the reason why I'm late all the time is because I'm not taking responsibility and leaving my house early. So once you know that you are in charge and you're in power of doing what you want to do, that's when your whole life opens up. Like, I went through the process myself. You know, as a woman, I go through a lot of, like, in the past, I would blame it as like, oh, it's because of media's unrealistic expectation of me, which is why I end up having an eating disorder. And for the longest time, I would just blame it on that. And then eventually I was like, I'm 30 somewhat years old. At what point am I going to say that I make my own decisions?
Right.
I let the media affect me. And eventually, when I realized that, that's when I became a lot healthier. I started being more fit. I started eating food that's nutritious for me. And I stopped blaming it on other people. So I've seen that with myself and with people that I coach. Like, the moment that they're like, you know what? I am responsible for my life. That's when they have gone out there and really, really done great things. So that's the concept I'm working on.
I love it. This is something that I firmly believe in. I have been a big believer of this. I do this all the time. In fact, one of the ways that I do this too is that I never apologize, which is difficult. It's really difficult to do. And it's not like a mean thing. It's just like if I'm late for something and I show up, I think a couple of weeks ago, I showed up late for a podcast and it was my fault, right? And what I found was that apologizing and excuses go together, because we usually say, I'm sorry, I was running late because, right? And that's an excuse. And that's also kind of a way to shirk responsibility. So instead I just show up, and my gut wants to say, I'm sorry, but instead I say, I'm late. Like, I owe you guys because I'm late. That's fine. That's totally 100% accepting responsibility. I don't get to have I don't get someone to make me, when I'm saying I'm sorry in that case, I'm trying to get someone to make me feel better. So they say, oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry. Or, they're responding back. So I've sort of started putting myself in that situation. And then everything, like even the stuff, it's kind of interesting too, because I'd like to get your take on this, but I take responsibility for a lot of stuff that when I take responsibility for it, a lot of people say, are you crazy? That's not your fault. You can't control the weather. You can't control, right? But I say, no, it's still my responsibility. It's still me, right? And I realize sometimes that some of these things sound ridiculous, but it's always like, I think I heard it from in one of Grant Cardone's books in the 10X rule. He was talking about like getting in a car accident and taking responsibility for even that, saying that, well, you could have made more money in life and had a chauffeur, or you could have left your house 5 minutes earlier or 10 minutes later, right? Like, you still made the decisions that ended up putting you in that intersection at that wrong time, right? Even though, everyone would claim it's not your fault, someone else hit you, just like taking that responsibility for that. And that really impacted me. And I started doing that even for the ridiculous things, but it's somehow it's still super powerful, at least for me. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think the way I look at it, I do separate two things. There are facts. There are facts that things happen. Like, if it rains outside, it's a fact it's raining.
Right.
It's a fact that there has been a car accident. And there's a fact that there is traffic. But that's something that I don't even want to think about, because I have no control over that. But what I do have control over is my own choices, my own decision, and also my psychological state. I can choose to react in such a way that I could take a victim's mentality. I could say, oh, I got drenched in the rain. I forgot my umbrella. or I got stuck in traffic, whatever it is, I could use that. But I think it's just a lot of time wasted. I think too many people waste their time in worrying about things that they can't control versus thinking about things that you can control. Because there's a lot of things that you can control. And the number one thing that you can control is yourself and your thoughts and your decisions. So that's my take on it.
And yeah, I think there's a couple of great philosophers that have said that that's the only thing you can control. I think, you know, because ultimately your internal state, what's in between here, is the only thing that you really have full. Everything else, like, you affect from, you don't have direct control over. You have indirect control. So I believe the same thing. It's very true. It's so empowering too, because I'm sure you've experienced the same thing coaching people, but there's been plenty of people that I've coached that have the potential, but they just won't take the responsibility. They want to still use excuses for why, right? And it's that, it seems to be the determining factor. Like, if a person is willing to say, yes, it's my fault, yes, I'm responsible for what has happened to me, for my situation, then they're empowered to change it. But when they refuse it, when they say, no, it's not my fault, I grew up poor, I've only learned this way, my parents did this to me, I have tried the hardest I can, but people just won't give me a job, it's not my fault, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. When they have that attitude, it doesn't matter. I just might as well end the coaching, because there's no way until they take that step. It doesn't matter. They can know the answer. They can know what they need to do. They could have the hardworking mentality, but if they have that belief, that limiting belief, it's like there's no hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And the parents one comes out a lot. Like, your upbringing, your childhood comes up all the time. Well, my dad was like this to me. That's no wonder I'm so messed up in my life, because look at the way my dad was, right? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Maybe when you're 12 years old and you are under your dad's roof, that could have a lot of effect but you are an adult now, you can vote, you're legal age of drinking, you can make your own decisions. At what point are you going to let go of that?
Right.
And it's an honest conversation that I have to have with a lot of people. It's like, at what point, they don't like me when I do that, because I will push. It's like, at what point are you going to liberate yourself and know that you're free, you are empowered to do whatever you want? So it frustrates me a lot.
Well, there's so many adults, and especially depending on the different upbringings too, right? Like, I have a lot of software developers in my audience that are either Indian or Asian, and they are, a lot of them are still living under their parents' approval today, like as adults, like in their 30s, and it's, I don't think it's just those cultures. I mean, I think there's plenty, in every culture there's some of that, but it's very much stronger there, especially when they're younger. And it's like, because I always get, how do I can't drop out of college and do what I want to do because my parents say no. And I'm like, you're 20. You're like, you gotta, I mean, don't be mean to your parents, and don't be an asshole and everything, but like, your life, it's your life, that you got to choose your life. And I mean, I think I struggled with it a little bit too, even in my late 20s and 30s. But at one point, it kind of clicked, and I was like, well, I'm I love my parents, but I don't care about their approval anymore. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. And I had some strained relationships for a while. They're still probably strained to some degree, because I just said, you know what? I cannot seek, even if the external validation is from my parents, right? I can't seek any external validation. It has to be 100% internal. I care what I'm doing. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And I think that's a really, really hard, especially so many people have it ingrained in their head that their parents are responsible for them, and that they can't do anything outside of the wishings of their parents unless they do it in secret, right? and I think that's it really does affect so many people.
I know, it's so true. And a lot of times it is out of love. Like, our parents have a perception of what happiness means to them, and they want to kind of put that on us. And I feel it. I feel for people, because especially if you really love your parents and you have a great relationship, you don't want to ruin it.
Right.
So maybe it comes down to a point you just don't talk about it, and you need to let it go within yourself and just say, I don't need their approval, instead of telling your parents to, go hit the road, right? Like, especially because if they kind, because I think about my parents. I'm Indian Chinese, so I came from India, and I'm Chinese. So my parents
Okay,
have
so you
very,
got
I
you
got
got
both.
both. Yeah.
I got both of
Yeah.
those things, and I live a very strange lifestyle. My parents don't understand the lifestyle that I live.
Yeah.
Right. And at some point, I tell them that you had a chance to live your life. Now, this is my life. Let me live my own life. And, it's a conversation I had with them, and it went really well. They're like, you know what? I agree with you. But
Okay.
sometimes the conversation might not go so well.
Right. And
What
that's,
if,
yeah,
sorry, what if you never get the validation ever? What are
exactly.
you going to do?
Right. And that's where it's hard. That's where you just got to say, look, it is your life. This isn't a dress rehearsal. You can't start over. Like, you got to just live your life.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think this also just applies to anyone in your life, because you're going to, you can either live a life where I think you are walking on eggshells and doing stuff that pleases the people around you,
Yeah.
but it's not a real life. It's not your life. You're just an accessory to other people's lives, and you're just playing out your days. Or you can live your true life that is truly you, and you're going to lose some relationships. People are not going to like you, maybe some, and you're going to find out who your real friends are, the people who don't guilt you, who don't have expectations on you, but just want to be
Mhm.
with you or want to see you succeed. and
Yeah.
and it's going to strain, and some people are never going to accept it. I think that's a lot of people can't handle that. They can't have their parents being angry at them, or their friends, or their spouses, or and they capitulate instead of living their authentic life, or they live two lives: a secret life and then their public life. And I think
Yeah.
that's it's always that choice. It's like, do you want to
Yeah.
live your life for someone else, or do you want to live it for you? And if you live
Absolutely.
it for you, there's going to be some pain and hardship along the way, and not everyone's going to approve of it and like it, and you can't get validation from everyone. It's not possible. But that's the choice that we have to make, right?
Absolutely. And yes, you might lose certain friends, but you have to think about it too for yourself. At what point are you going to put yourself through that? Like, at what point are you going to say to yourself that I'm living my spouse's dream, I'm living my parents' dream, I'm not living my own dream.
Right.
And it has led to some people making some tough decisions. Maybe that spouse is not right for you.
Right. Yeah.
Right, that's hard, and I feel for that. I'm married, and like, it is hard, like, once you're in love and you're married, and when you feel, I've dealt with people who's like, my partner does not support me. They haven't supported me since day one. It's like, so what are you waiting for?
Right. Yeah.
And it's tough. It is like, it burns me to say something like that to someone, but at what point are you going to live your life?
Yeah, no, it's very true, and it is really a tough thing.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to just being able to not have expectation. Like, at one point, I in my family too, my background growing up was on my mom's side
Mhm.
Italian, and on my dad's side Turkish. And so this is very like old country, right? It's like, you're in the family, and right, don't betray the blood, and all these kind of concepts from the old country, right? And so it's really tough, because you've got to you got to realize, like, guilt is a very big thing, especially in Italian families, right? It's a guilt. And so I grew up thinking that I had to control other people to some degree, and one of the great tools to control other people is guilt. And so I was most susceptible to guilt. People would guilt me all the time, right? Not
Yeah.
me. This is not all. And again, I don't want to paint a picture of this as like, this is so evil. It's not. It's just like, it's just how it's meant to. It's like, it's meant to be love, but it's really it really comes out destructive in people's lives. But I was used to guilt, like motivating me and responding to guilt, and then I was guilting other people. And then I finally reached this one point in my life where my eyes opened up, and I said, I think one of the things that really helped me was I read this book called Boundaries.
Okay.
Which it's a very religious book, but it has really good message regardless of
Mhm.
the religion in it. But uh, for those that are so opposed to any kind of but anyway, I started to live my life in such that I said, I'm not putting expectations on anyone else. They can live their life however they want. And I am not accepting expectations or guilt from anyone else. I'm not guilting anyone to try and make them do anything, and I am not accepting it from anyone. And when I made that choice in my life, there was some strained relationships, but I felt free for the first time. And I finally felt like the relationships that I was in with people were authentic because I was choosing to be there and they were choosing to be there. There wasn't obligation anymore, because I think we're so much of our mindset, we have obligation, and that's why people don't do what you said. That's why they don't, if their spouse is not supporting them for years and years, they feel obligated to that person, or obligated to that relationship, or obligated to that job. People don't even want to quit their job because they feel obligated to their employer, right? And do their thing. And that's, I think that's the poison. It's like, how do you overcome that obligation? So how did you do, obviously you've broken through with a lot of this. How did you overcome your sense of obligation? Or does the analogy I'm painting make sense for you?
It does. Well, how did I do it? It wasn't something that it was overnight. It was something that I have been working on for a long time. Something happened to me a couple of years ago that pushed me to make some difficult decisions. One of my really good friends passed away. And, when someone dies, you think about their life and you think about, celebrate their life, right? Celebrate all the wonderful things that they have done. And I couldn't even find anything to celebrate about.
Wow. Okay.
Because this person lived with obligations, didn't do anything meaningful, didn't want to live the life that they wanted. And they lived a very long life. They lived into the 80s. So long life. But they didn't do things that they wanted to do and just complained all the time. And then I realized that I don't want to be that person. I don't want to die with regret. I don't want to do it. And it was like slow moving. At first I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then and people who are watching, you're going to feel moments of boldness, and other moments you're just going to shrink down. It's like, you know what, maybe this is too crazy. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe, I'm still obligated. So I still have moments of that still, I'm not going to lie. I still feel obligated to a certain extent, but it's catching yourself and being aware of it is the first thing. And then second thing is just to keep pushing through.
Yeah.
And know that it's going to be okay.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, it's tough. It's because we think a certain way that things have to be. We don't realize that it's like it's all going to be okay. I think I love that, because it's true, because you've gotten through everything so far, right? Like you'll figure out a way to get through whatever, but backing off and choosing the safe route is often just it's not the best choice, just because I used to live my life based on what is safe. And it's a sad life. Like you wall yourself in.
Yeah. So what happened with you? Well, how did you go from a safe life to what you're doing right now?
Gosh, there's definitely been a few different transitions, and even with what I'm doing right now, there was this big transformation about 2 years ago when all this was kind of happening. And one of the big things actually was interesting that really was a catalyst. I'd say it's a catalyst, because I don't think that there's like one particular thing that changes your mindset. There's something that speeds it up or causes that breakthrough. But about, was it like two years ago? I think 2 years ago. Yeah, I went to a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny program, and it was like a whole week intensive thing. And I came in there actually with my laptop, thinking that I was going to like take some notes and do like let's study this, how to change your mindset, right? And then obviously it was, I don't know if you have been to Tony Robbins. But,
I have.
Okay,
I have
so
done it. I did the other one, the UPW, Unleash the Power Within. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so anyway, it's like the music starts and people are dancing and hugging each other, and I'm like, whoa, I don't know, buddy. I don't know what's going on here. I'm here for a conference, right? A conference. Are we not? What, are we going to learn some stuff? Yeah. And it's not. It's a touchy-feely type of thing. But it really helped me to like break through to realize like some of the things that I was doing, one of the things actually. So he said something. Tony Robbins said something that really sparked a change in my life. Is he said, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. And that struck me really, really hard, because I had realized that I had been building my entire life around certainty, around safety, around security. And what I had been doing, like even with my investments, even with my career, right? I was buying real estate, investing. I was trying to make income and trying to retire. And I wanted to build this wall around me, like a financial protection, so nothing could hurt me. I started becoming a very fearful person over my life. I was afraid to fly in airplanes, afraid of roller coasters, afraid of a lot of different things, right? And so, and that was all to protect me, right? I don't want to get any kind of emotional or physical or financial danger. And so I built this huge fortress around me. And I don't know if you've seen, the best analogy I can give is, there was this movie a while back called Final Destination, or maybe it was like Final, like maybe it was part 2 of it, or Final Destination 2 or something.
Yeah,
anyway,
there was quite a few of them. Yeah, I know which one.
There was this scene, if you remember, where this kid he was next, right? He was supposed to die next. So he knows that the Grim Reaper's coming for him or whatever, right? Because he's cheated death. And so he goes up into this cabin in the woods, okay? And he like duct tapes, like he gets rid of every sharp thing, everything that could possibly kill him, right? He throws all that stuff out. He's preparing this thing so he'll be ready for death, so that it'll pass over him. And he like duct tapes his arms and puts like, you know, padding everywhere, right? And so there's a scene where he's secured the cabin and he's sitting in this chair. He's got like, you know, he's got duct taped oven mitts on his hands so that he can't hurt himself, right? There's nothing he can trip and fall. And he's just sitting in this chair. Yeah. Right. And that was me. Right. I was like, you know, because the irony, when you see that, you're like, oh, wow, I guess he's pretty protected, but he's got to just sit in this chair forever because he's not going to live his life. Or you see what I'm saying? And so that was me. I was that kid. My whole life was about building this cabin and protecting, getting rid of all the danger, and just sitting there waiting for, and then I'll just sit in there and wait for death till I get old. Right. But not living my life. And so what I realized was it's like, no. You know, that breakthrough came, and I said, I'm going to go skydiving. I'm going to go and to find the wildest roller coaster that I can. I'm going to get on that thing, and I'm going to start living my life like, you know, taking risks, and, you know, and I'm not going to build security because this uncertainty, you know, I had been killing my life by trying to save my life and preserve it. And so, you know, I now my psychology, it really switched over and it changed. And it's like, you know, what happens. Like, I'm going to live my life, and whatever the consequences for me living my life, I'll accept those consequences. I'm willing to take that, and I'm willing to let that be. And maybe it means that I'll die, but so be it. I'll at least have lived my life, as opposed to sitting in that fucking chair and not living my life and hoping that nothing bad happens to me, which was how my life was going that direction. I realized that I'd sucked all the joy and happiness out of my life because I was making it so secure. And so, yeah, so that was really one of I think the biggest mindset transformations that occurred. And everything from that point, from how I do my videos to what I do, change, and just, you know, just having that different perspective, I would say completely changed my life.
Wow. And I think a lot of people can relate, because we all want to save up for our retirement and everything. Right. And I used to be like that. I got into the corporate world at a really young age. I invested into real estate. I had a mortgage. I had all that wonderful, comfortable stuff. I had in Canada, we call it RSPs. I don't know. Are you in Canada?
No,
or are you in the States? So 401k would be your thing. And I thought to myself, what if I die tomorrow? Like, I'm saving up for something that is so far in the future. I'm going to be this little old lady, like 80 somewhat years old, and I haven't lived yet. And I'm a young woman right now. What if I don't get to live that long?
Right.
What am I doing with my life? And just elevate the importance. I try to do that as much as possible. Every time I'm afraid, I just elevate and I raise the stakes. Yeah. You know, what's going to happen 5 years from now if I don't take that? I'm going to living a shittier life than I am right now. You know, you have to take action.
I've been toying with the concept of leasing life. So I did this video a
Okay.
little bit ago, and I said, because
I like
people
it.
were
Okay.
asking me about getting old and dying and afraid, and I was like, what if I just like, what if I lease 10 years of life? Like, what if I said I'm gonna, just like you lease a car or something, I'm saying, Father Time, Universe, God, I want 10 years. Give me 10. I'm going to take a lease for 10
Yeah.
years, and I'm just going to live
Yeah.
my life 10 years. Like that's all I got left. Right. And then when after the 10 years comes up, maybe I'll get a lease renewal and hope for another 10 years, but I'm just going to live my life. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that, and I'm not going to worry about anything for 10 years. I'm just going to assume I've got the 10 but that's all I got. And I'm just going to use the 10. Right. And so I don't know. I've been thinking about that concept to kind of
Lease. Okay. I like it. I like the
yeah,
concept. I like it. Yeah.
because it's
Interested
all
to see
borrowed
how it's
time
going to
anyway.
unfold.
Right. It's
It's
all
true.
borrowed time.
Yeah.
So cool. So what's next? What are you up to now? This is it's interesting, like that you've made this transition, and now where do you go? Like where do you see yourself going for this? So like what do you really want to like accomplish now as an entrepreneur, being free, unshackled? Where do you
Yeah.
see yourself going?
Well, the immediate goal is for me to do as much speaking as possible because one of my biggest
Mhm.
goals is to be a speaker. So I did my TEDx talk recently. I'm back in Michigan again. So that's where I did my TEDx talk. I'm back there. While I was there, they asked me, one of the audience members approached me to come speak at the congregation. So I'll be back there again. So I'll be doing a lot more speaking for the short term. That's my short term goal. And of course, I'm working on the concept and I'm doing coaching and making videos. But the long-term goal for me is the goal that I keep myself sane. Because sometimes when you own your own business, you're working long hours and you sometimes forget your why. Why are you
Right.
even doing this? Because you kind of get nitty gritty, especially when I do administrative stuff. I just like start to lose focus because it's not my strong point. But my biggest why is that I want to inspire as many people as I can to live an extraordinary life, however that looks like for them.
Right. Right.
It could be being a great parent. It could be being an entrepreneur. It could be being a multi-billionaire, whatever it is. I want people to start making bold choices and go out there and be extraordinary.
And what's
So
that difference? What's the difference between an extraordinary life and one that's not an extraordinary life? How can we know, right? Because I think some people would say,
mm,
I'm living an extraordinary life, exactly like that, as opposed to I'm living an extraordinary life. Like, you know what I mean? Like people would say,
yeah,
because they've convinced themselves, this is what I want. This is my dream. I'm doing all this stuff. I believe I have to be living an extraordinary life, right?
right? Even just that, right?
Right.
That alone is not a great way of saying it. I think an extraordinary life. I'm not any different from anybody else. I'm pretty ordinary. I'm a pretty average person. I was not born into money. I was not born into with extraordinary talents. I think is going out there and making the decisions to further yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, furthering themselves means that going out there and getting a raise.
Mm-hmm.
Not holding back, knowing that you deserve all the good things that you want. Also, at the same time, working towards it. Because a lot of people say, I want this, I want that, I want all of these things, but they don't work hard towards it. Being extraordinary is maybe asking that girl out for the very first time that you've been putting off for such a long time.
Right. Yeah.
Being bold. And I think extraordinary for me is just going out there and having the courage to be yourself too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. It's we kind of know, right? We kind of know
We
when
know.
we're not
We know.
living up to our potential and what it is, and it's different for other people. Like we can't compare someone else and say it's you could have what the world could perceive as the best life, and you're bold and you're exciting and you do all these things, but internally if you're not living up to what your potential is.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
you could be on the surface be an extraordinary human being. You could do all that. You could have a lot of money, but at the same time, inside what you want to do. I think we all know. We have the
Yeah.
awareness to know. Mhm.
Awesome. All right. So I got one more question for you.
Okay.
That just a personal question. Since you're newly minted entrepreneur, you quit your corporate job. I always like to ask about freedom because
Okay.
people think they want freedom until they get freedom, and then they realize that freedom is a burden. At least, that this has been my experience in life, and talking to a lot of people. How did you experience that? Did you go through that? Did you feel what it's, that burden, or did you not?
It's really funny because I heard someone say, being an entrepreneur, you have the freedom to work however that looks like. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work as an entrepreneur. You choose the 16 hours you want to work in a day. For me, I became an entrepreneur. First of all, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's not even in my dreams to be one. I became one by accident because I knew that was the only way to get my message across.
Right.
And then that's why I jumped in. Freedom in a sense that I get to pave my own path and I get to do the things that I want to do while helping other people. Burden in a sense that everything that I do can have a huge impact on people.
Right.
So being careful and not making sure I don't fall off track and, go back into my comfort zone, it keeps me going because I do have the burden, because everything I do can impact someone.
Right. All right. Well, thank you, Lily. That's a great answer, and it's been really. I appreciate your help with the one word. I'm feeling better about Bulldog.
Right.
I'm liking it, and that also happens to correspond to be one of my most popular videos on the channel. Is someone asked me how to become a Bulldog, and I gave them the answer. And that's so yeah, I'm feeling good about that, and yeah, it was great talking to you. I wish you the best with what you're doing. I love your idea of wanting to inspire people and to help them to live extraordinary lives. I think everyone, regardless if they're an entrepreneur or not, or whatever their circumstances, because you don't have to follow the same paths as we did, but I believe everyone should and can live an extraordinary life, whatever that means to them. And so I'm glad to see you unshackling people's minds.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, John. I also want to acknowledge you for all the work that you do. When I went on your channel to look at your videos, you definitely challenge the status quo. You're a typical programmer, and I love that. I love people who are shit disturbers, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not afraid to challenge people's beliefs and turn it on its head. So I love everything that you do too.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. All right. So before we go, real quick, where can people, if they want to find out more about you, if they want to perhaps get some coaching on their one word, sounds pretty cool, or invite you to speak, where can they go? What's the best place?
Sure. So I have an Instagram account. It's called It's Lily Ma.
Okay.
And you will see that it's Lily Ma, and you will see that I hang out on Evan Carmichael's channel a lot. So I have a bi-weekly series called Unlocking Lily, where you could follow my journey in becoming a speaker. And if you want to get a hold of me personally, you could ask this wonderful man for my email address.
Sure. Okay. All right, Lily. Well, thank you, and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Mm-hmm. Bye.